Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. And who do I have with us today but Saint Murad? Hello, Murad. Welcome back.
Hello, Mel. It's always a pleasure to be with you. As I always say, you are the original guy, so it's always the best to talk with you.
Same here. Same here. It's amazing. It's only been what is it, 3 years, 4 years since we started our collaboration, and it seems like the boulder we've started pushing down the mountain has got bigger and bigger as time's gone by, and who knows what else will happen as a result of this. So obviously, one of the highlights of this year is the fact that you finally got a literal translation of the Quran into English. And you're here to talk about something connected with that, which is as you see there, the standard Islamic narrative hoax. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'll maybe interject once in a while, but I'll hand it over to you. Tell us all about this.
Yeah, you see, now everyone knows that the standard Islamic narrative it has holes, but the point is the standard Islamic narrative actually ruins Quran translations also. It ruins and poisons everything, but especially Quran translations. So here, what is the standard Islamic narrative for people who do not know? Well, the exegesis of the Quran, the Hadith, which is the sayings of Muhammad, the biography of Muhammad, Prophet of Islam, Asbab al-Nuzul or reasons of dissension. They say, why was this verse revealed? This is part of the sin,
Mm-hmm.
the Mecca and Medina phases. And the question I ask is this stuff valid to crack the Quran? This is the question I ask you. Well, is it a Persian Quran? If I were to give you a Spanish book and ask you to explain it in detail, do you think it would be a good idea to ask someone who actually knows Spanish? What do you think?
I think it'd be essential, really, wouldn't it?
Of course. Then why, when it comes to the Quran, you ask someone who does not know Arabic? I am talking about Al-Tabari, who was from Tabaristan, who doesn't know proper Arabic, Al-Baghawi, and these people who made the exegesis of the Quran. Most of them were Persians who didn't speak Arabic well. This is why the exegesis of the Quran most of the times is laughable. Back in 2020, I have made a video proving that the Umayyads and the Abbasids might have been from Central Asia. And if you remember, uh, I did this video with you years back.
Yeah, I remember it well.
So what's the caliph's role in all of this? We are not 100% sure of their motives, the caliphs. A lot of politics was going on. The caliphs used to decide. So why even listen to them? Because it is a general Islamic consensus. It is a bad idea if you think about it. Back to the Persians. Ironically, the Quran is the only book where if you want to translate it, you want to know the meaning of a word, you never open a dictionary. Instead, you go to these Persians who neither lived in the same century as Muhammad, nor were Arabs, nor lived close to the Hijaz. And the main problem with these interpretations is that they are built on flimsy reports. They say that this guy said to this guy, said to this guy, and these people, they were nobodies most of the time. Who are these people? So why should I base my Quran translation on these tafseers that are clearly a big sham?
So just before you go further, so
Yeah,
what you're saying is not only did these people not speak Arabic very well, but they were also geographically far removed from the location, so they didn't really know what was going on. They're not in a position to either know what was going on in the area, and also they didn't know the languages. Those are two barriers to being able to give a good interpretation.
yeah, so they should either know Arabic well, they don't, or they should at least be close to the traditions so that
Yeah.
they're getting the traditions from the forefathers. Again, they don't. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
Now, what is the sin Quran exegesis? Well, an overarching theme in the Quran exegesis, this is Al-Tabari, by the way, Iranian from Tabaristan. An overarching theme in the Quran exegesis is that anything the Quran commentators do not know the meaning of, they throw it into the afterlife because they know no one can come back to life and prove them wrong. A very sleazy marketing tactic indeed. An example would be the word Kawthar in Surah 108, verse 1. They say it's a river in paradise, which is pure comedy. Because, of course, Kawthar, as you know, by now we know that it's Kuttar, which is the Syriac word. They do not know Arabic or Syriac. That's why they say ludicrous stuff like this is a river in paradise. Anything they do not know is gonna be in paradise. What do you think so far?
Yes, just for those who don't know, how would you translate Kutar in light of the Syriac?
Well, it will be consistent prayers. Inna
Right.
a'tainaka al-kawthar would be something like we have given you the time so that you have an abundance to pray. Like the monks, the monks, they have the time to
Mm.
pray.
Yeah.
This is from Syriac. This is something that these Persians, they did not know.
This is kind of, it sounds like it means like liturgical hours, like monks have specified times for prayer. It's something on those lines.
Yeah, and it goes well with the Quran being Qiryana, being this liturgical book.
Excellent, yeah. That was actually a word back 4 years ago that I was banging my head against the wall trying to figure out what it actually meant. I had lots of different theories, couldn't quite crack it, but that sounds very credible in terms of the meaning, especially when it's in the Syriac. So excellent.
Yeah. Now, they say in these Sin Quran exegesis the phrase, the people of knowledge differed about this issue, about everything. When you ask today's Arabic speaking Muslims, they will tell you something like, sorry, when you ask them, why do commentators differ about every single issue in the Quran? They will say this is because of the mercy of Islam. No, this is because the Islamic exegesis is so ignorant about the Quran. Just this very reply is at the very least stupid, at the very most absurd. When I tell you why all the contradictions, you tell me this is the mercy of Islam, then your logical capabilities are compromised when you say something like this.
Do you know what's funny about that is actually it reminds me of a verse in the Quran you probably know better than me, where it's supposed that a prophet has been sent to the various sects. But the problem with that idea in the Quran is if these sects, whether it be Jewish or Christian, are contradicting each other, how can God, Allah, be sending contradictory messages to different sects? It makes no sense. And here we have another example of being comfortable with having contradictory theories about what a passage means.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. Another overarching theme in all these tafseers or exegesis of the Quran is the phrase Allahu A'lam, meaning Allah is more knowledgeable, which is fraudulently translated as Allah knows best. Why do they have this phrase? It is not because they are humble, it is because they really do not know what the Quran is talking about. Picture this. Someone on the street tells you, "Excuse me, where is the nearest Starbucks?" And you say something like, "Well, basically, there are 9 opinions." And then you start saying the 9 opinions. He will say, "You, sir, you are crazy." That's what you're gonna say. Again, here, the same question, but he will ask me, "Where is the nearest Starbucks?" I will tell him, 61 Ninth Avenue. And that's it. Why? Because I have the exact information. I'm not just tap dancing with these Persians. What do you think?
And that's it. If you either know something you don't, and a clear sign that someone doesn't know it, if they're saying one thing, another person saying another thing, another person saying something other than that again, that's a pure sign that really they don't know. And it's take your pick time, which might be comforting for some people, but really none of them really know if that's all you're left with. It's just an opinion.
Exactly, yeah. So here we will move to the Sunnah, and we will say that the Sunnah, it came from Transoceania, not Arabia. And the Sunnah are the sayings and the deeds of the Prophet of Islam. Now, back in the day, I know you remember this slide, but I made it a little better.
Oh.
Uh, where are the Sunnah writers actually from? You see here you have Al-Bukhari, who wrote Sahih al-Bukhari. So Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan ibn Majah, Sunan Abi Dawood, Al-Tirmidhi, Al-Nasai. Al-Bukhari from Uzbekistan, Nisapuri from Iran, Al-Qazwini from Iran. And Qazwini, it means the Caspian. Al-Ash'ath, Iran. Al-Tirmidhi, Uzbekistan. Al-Nasai, Turkmenistan. So as you can see, no one is from Arabia.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, this is like the Far East here. Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Iran. No one from Arabia. So the people who are giving you the traditions of the Prophet, they are way, way off, way far east.
And the other issue is not only are they're in the wrong location. They're far, the far east from where we should be hearing the stories, but they're also very late. So we're talking centuries later. So it's like that's another dimension. So we have an issue with the language, not knowing the language, like with the Quran. We have an issue of geography. They're far away. And now we also even have something that you haven't mentioned, but they're writing centuries later. So what hope do they have in terms of knowing whatever Muhammad is supposed to have said?
Exactly. And when you think about it in the context of a Quran translation into English or any other language, but of course I'm only talking about English, you will have all these problems within this translation. All these diseases are present in the translation because they're looking at these writings. They can never ignore the Sunnah or Quran exegesis or anything that came after the Quran.
So the Sunnah essentially is just compounding the errors in terms of the interpretation. These are people who are not best placed to know what they're talking about, but probably worse placed in geography, history, and language.
Exactly. So you have like the Quran that you have in English now, it's like a totally different text. Yes, it goes well with the Sunnah, but the original Quran is lost. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Plus, oral traditions survive at the very same area it was born in. Like, for example, the indigenous people of America. Like, I could ask these indigenous people of America about their traditions. They will say something like, "Our forefathers, they used to hunt wolves or anything like that." I will believe them because they were there, same area.
Mm-hmm.
The grandchildren are just taking what they heard from their grandfathers. It works. But if you have the people in Iran talking about people in Arabia, then there is a big, big problem. All Sunnah writers came from places other than Arabia, so the claim that the oral traditions being passed down from Prophet Muhammad is a complete fraud.
Just on
Now,
that,
what?
before we go further,
Yeah,
um, it raises questions about the instigators of the Sunnah because it would suggest that at the time when these were, let's say, hired for the job of writing down these traditions, um, they're they're all from a particular area, and it would kind of lead to questions of would it happen to be at the same time that there were Turkic leaders in charge of Islam? It does seem that way, doesn't it? Leaders from Central Asia who are now running the show in terms of Islam, and they're the ones that are commissioning these sunnah, which of course reflects their sort of worldview rather than the 7th century worldview or the Arabian worldview.
Exactly, and there is something that no Muslim mentions, and also no other. Like I do not see people who are looking into early Islam. I do not see them pressing this point. Is that actually the caliphs? They were the ones who asked for these things to be written. It was a decree from the caliph. So you write whatever he wants. This is
Yeah,
very important. This changes everything.
absolutely.
So now we will talk about Sahih al-Bukhari and I will ask, is it a hoax? Sahih al-Bukhari doesn't have one original manuscript. This Moroccan scholar wrote a whole book about it. Until now, no one has debunked him. It's called Sahih al-Bukhari Nihayat Ustura. In English would be Sahih al-Bukhari The End of a Myth, an Arabic book that no one can debunk till now. Debunking him requires one thing and one thing only, a manuscript from the time of al-Bukhari. That never happened. Also, Muslim scholars created a pseudoscience called Ilm al-Rijal or the science of men, which is hocus pocus. Because the idea that, well, we know this guy got from this guy, this is a joke that was created later just to uh, just to say that this hadith was sahih, because of course it was created later. The hadith, it was fabricated.
Of course, the idea that there was isnads going back and they have biographies supposedly to go with the various people along the isnad chain. That in itself is just another work of fiction.
You know the word isnad? It comes from sanada, which means support something from falling. So just the word isnad gives it away.
It's like propping up what should collapse, essentially.
Exactly. So the word
Yeah.
itself, the word isnad is funny. It's saying I am putting something to aid this building from falling. I am supporting this from falling.
Yeah.
So what about the other sahah? The six sahah, people could ask. Well, Bukhari might be a hoax, but the others are right. Well, their case is even worse, as explained again by this Moroccan scholar in his book. Plus, these writings in Bukhari are not all about Muhammad. You have the example of the she monkey getting stoned, and you will not find this translated all the time into English because it is so shameful that you have a tradition that the monkeys were stoning one another because this was an adulteress and stuff. It is so shameful that they do not translate it because of how absurd it is. What do you think so
Yeah.
far?
That's crazy. Yeah, that is a crazy story.
Okay, now I want to move to the biography of Muhammad. And who do we have here? This is Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. He looks from Asia, but he is an
Yeah.
Abbasid caliph. Al-Mansur, the second Abbasid caliph, is the one who requested Ibn Ishaq to write the biography of Muhammad for his son Al-Mahdi. This is Islamic tradition. But what I'm talking about here is that this was a request from the caliph. He told him, please write this for my son. This is what the Muslim da'wagandist will never tell you.
Yeah.
Ibn Ishaq wrote this biography 130 years after Prophet Muhammad's supposed death. So what's the problem? The problem is the original of Ibn Ishaq is lost. The original of Al-Bakka'i is lost. The original of Ibn Hisham is lost. Robert Spencer's Did Muhammad Exist? Show very well the problems with the biography of Muhammad. And Crossroads to Islam shows how the archaeology actually leads to Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. This is the real history outside of the sin standard Islamic hoax.
Just in passing, I should say, with the crossroads to Islam, Yehuda Nevo points out that it's in the 730s that you start to see references to Muhammad coming up in the inscriptions. So that suggests a tradition is being invented in the 8th century, and it doesn't appear naturally in the 7th century the way you'd expect it to.
Yeah, and this goes very well with the archaeology and also the coins, the numismatics, everything that we know now.
Yeah.
Now I will talk about Asbab al-Nuzul or reasons of dissension, because Muslims they say, well, this verse was revealed for this reason, something along those lines. But the reality is, Asbab al-Nuzul, the literal meaning of the word would be verses flying down from heaven as seen in this picture. This is the reality. But Muslim translators, of course, they translate it as, why was this verse revealed? This is a highly narcissistic, self centered approach to the Quran, later created by Muslims after owning a complete Quran. On one level, it was made to cover up the fact that they do not know what the Quran is talking about. On a deeper level, it was crafted to forge the life of Muhammad into the Quran. The reality is, the Quran does not know Muhammad. So this is Asbab al-Nuzul. You have something to say about this?
Yeah. So let me get this right. So the concept here is that the Quran is a revelation from on high. Am I understanding it correctly? Rather than it as something that was kind of composed and put together. Is that, do
No,
I understand it?
I'm talking, for example, they say that the verse of Al-Hijab, of the Hijab verse, it was revealed after Umar um, said it. This is very,
Right.
this is
Yeah.
very narcissistic because you cannot prove this. You are just trying to add these people into the story. The Quran never mentioned these people.
Oh, I get it. So they're they're looking at the Quran as if it were a source by which you can get biographical information, and they're projecting into the text whatever they want to see in the text. Is that right?
Exactly, because, yeah, because the Quran never mentioned Abu Bakr, but they say that he is mentioned, and Umar, and Muhammad's wives, all this stuff. It is not mentioned in the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
This is an assumption or an assertion by the standard
Yeah.
Islamic narrative.
Yeah.
Now we have the Mecca and Medina, or should I say Muhammad and Moses. The Sin standard Islamic narrative claims that some verses were revealed in Mecca and some were revealed in Medina. Reality is Muhammad's immigration or hijrah from Mecca to Medina is a hoax remodeled on Moses' exodus with his people out of Egypt for being persecuted for their new monotheism. And also, I think you are the one who made this research before that
Mm-hmm.
Yathrib actually changed to Medina much later.
That's right. Yeah. That's a problem for them.
Yeah, so the details of this scam are not to be discussed here. But what I want to tell you is that this is another standard Islamic narrative hoax to make the Quran fit the story of Muhammad. Adding insult to injury, no one actually agrees which verses are from Mecca and which are in Medina. Sometimes half of the verses in Mecca and the other half is in Medina. If you picture this, someone tells you, hey man, let's go grab some, and after 2 to 4 weeks on a camel, you will tell him coffee. What do you think? How absurd is this?
That is, yeah, that is seriously absurd. But that's what they're claiming. So
Yeah.
brilliant.
Now, here are things that are not mentioned in the Quran. This is so that the audience know that if this stuff is shoved into the English translation, it's because it is just shoved there. It's not in the Arabic. Hijrah, specifically from Mecca to Medina, this is not mentioned in the Quran. Isra and Mi'raj, which is fraudulently translated as the night journey, this is not in the Quran. The doctrine of abrogation, not in the Quran. The black stone, Ashura, Muhammad's wives, Muhammad's companions, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, 5 pillars of Islam, and many, many more, all these things come from the sin standard Islamic narrative. They are not in the Quran.
Massive uh, invention going on, presumably.
Yeah, so I say enough is enough. The sin doesn't just have holes in it, it's one big hole. Like Dr. J. Smith always says, you've got the wrong man at the wrong place, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. Even Muslim scholar Yasser Qadi acknowledges this when he said the standard narrative has holes in it. Don't worry, I will barbecue the sin on my channel, so if you are interested, just subscribe to my channel. So here I say that the sin is a hoax. These tools are not valid to crack the Quran. These tools just get you much further away from the Quran, which was originally in Syriac, then got Arabized. And before we switch to Muslim and non-Muslim translations of the Quran, I ask you, what do you think so far?
This is brilliant. It just confirms everything that we've been saying really the last few years, that um, there's an awful lot of misinterpretation of what the Quran is saying. The Sunnah doesn't help; it just makes things worse. The Biography of Muhammad, written centuries later, is not helpful at all. And defining the Quran to Mecca and Medina phases doesn't help either. It's all a big muddle, and it's just leading to confusion, ambiguity, and it leads us away from the original meaning, the intended meaning of the Quran. So it's not helpful at all.
Yeah. Now we will move to Muslim and non-Muslim Quran translations. The question with the Bible usually is, which translation is better? But with the Quran, which translation is worse? This is the usual question. Quran translations are so bad and deceptive that they are an online meme. They say the science of bracketology about Quran from all the brackets.
Yeah.
It's known, it's well known how bad Quran translations are. Now here we have Muslim and non-Muslim translators. These would be the Muslims, these would be the non-Muslims or Christians. What do they have next to them as they were translating the Quran? When they first started, they had the sin next to them. They didn't have anything else. They were working within the standard Islamic narrative frame.
Yeah.
So, Muslim and non Muslim translators of the Quran. Well, the Quran is the only book in history in which, if you want to know a certain word, you never open a dictionary, but you go to writings written by Persians who are way too late. Muslim and non-Muslim Quran translators started by translating from Surah 1 without creating their own concordance. It is evident from their lack of consistency in word choice. Let's look at how the sin corrupts a translation. You have here ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها. They say we do not abrogate a verse or cause it to be forgotten. So this is in every Quran translation. This is sad because if we look here, the word nasakha is mentioned 4 times in the Quran in 4 contexts. The Arabic word nasakha has a common theme in all these contexts, and it should not be contradictory. Do they know the common theme? Did they do their homework? No, they don't, and they didn't. So here, let's look again. ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها. And here you have Osama's translation, you have Robert Spencer translation, you have Sahih International. They say abrogate, the 3 of them, and they say verse, the 3 of them, with Robert having it as revelation. So the question is, do you see any difference between Muslim and non-Muslim translations? Creating more sin-based translations, I say it's like beating a dead horse. But I want to ask you now, do you see any difference between the 3 verses here
I
from
don't, to be
Muslim and
honest
non?
with
Yeah.
If you didn't have the faces next to it, I couldn't tell you which was translated by Muslim, which was translated by non-Muslim. They're obviously influenced by the traditions.
They're influenced so much by the traditions that they didn't take the time to look into the word nasakha, that maybe it means something other than abrogate. And also
Yeah.
they didn't look at the word verse, that maybe the Quran never said verse. Because as I told you before, the Quran doesn't have the word verse at all. This is an
Mm.
influence from biblical translations. They always have
Yeah.
the Bible in their mind, and this is a problem.
Yeah.
So here you have Osama and Robert. They will tell you something like jihad means fight the infidels. Me, on the other hand, I will say something like jihad used to mean exert effort, but the sin turned it into holy war or fight the infidels.
Yeah.
It's as if they are saying gay only means homosexual. I am saying in the 50s, gay used to mean happy, now it only means homosexual. So you see, I am going back to the previous layer in the Quran, trying to crack it. That's the big
And
difference. Yeah,
what's interesting actually, sometimes when Taoists don't want jihad to be seen as fighting the infidels or holy war, they're quite happy to offer up the earlier meaning when it suits them if they're trying to present themselves as peace lovers and so forth. Especially after 9/11, they were very much trying to say, "Oh no, jihad is all about peace and all the rest of it." Just making an effort. Like they were willing to offer that earlier meaning. It's funny that when it suits them, they're actually aware of that earlier meaning, but when it doesn't, they offer the changed meaning.
exactly. So that's why the work of Osama and Robert is actually important because it's giving you the final understanding of the Muslims. I am giving you the primitive understanding of the Muslims.
Mm.
But of course, the Muslim propagandists, they know both and they play dumb. They play all their cards. After
Yeah,
9/11, it's just exert effort,
yeah,
and if they have the numbers on their side, then it's fight holy war.
absolutely, yeah,
So if people are asking what's the difference between my translation and Robert and Osama, I will say this is like comparing apples and oranges. They would both be oranges because they're using the same material, standard Islamic narrative. I would be
mm.
an apple because I have never touched the sin standard Islamic narrative. Big difference. A lot of words are not a lot of words, everything is different in my
Yeah.
translation.
So I think like an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Maybe your apple a day keeps the sin away.
Yeah, I agree to that. So here you have a Muslim and non-Muslim translators of the Quran. The Muslim translators, they say something like the Quran cannot be 100% understood because it is from Allah. On the other hand, these translators, they say it cannot be 100% understood because it's from a madman or from anything like, they say all kind of stuff. But they both rely on the sin. The Muslim side, most of the time they are liars to make Islam look better. And on the other side, you have them sincere, the non-Muslim side. They are trying their best to say it as it is.
Mm.
But in the end, they are all oranges. If I were to give you white sugar, eggs, baking soda, vanilla, milk, now what will you come up with? Maybe you will make an amazing cake like the non-Muslim side or the Christian side, or you will make a horrible cake like the Muslim side. But in the end, it's a cake. Same ingredients, same results. You will never get a pizza from these ingredients, for example. You see?
Yeah.
So we've got a problem, a big problem. What is the solution? I say it would be a Quran translation that totally ignored the sin and worked with language only, aka the Murad translation. And people, they should stay tuned because this will be our next segment. So that's all I have for today, and I want to hear your comments.
Fantastic, Murad. As always, I think it just reminds us how important it is to get rid of the standard Islamic narrative hoax, push that aside. We have to cut through all of that, the forest, the shrubbery that's basically hiding the original meaning of the Quran. Once we get to that level, then we can really work out how Islam began. But obviously, all this foliage of the standard Islamic narrative is covering the truth. And maybe a lot of Muslims would like that to remain the case. But unfortunately for them, we come with pruners and what else? Cutters and you name it, axes to cut away all the foliage so we can actually get to the truths, you know. So this is brilliant, Murad. Good summary of all of the problems in the standard Islamic narrative hoax.
Yeah, thank you. And I will ask the people to get my Quran translation and to read the introduction because I give them some gold in the introduction. And let me tell the people that my translation is very literal. A lot of people told me it's annoying to read. I tell them good because this is how it is in the Arabic. It's very annoying to read in the Arabic. It is this bad in the Arabic. The grammar in the Arabic and the syntax is corrupt. That's
Yeah.
why I want you to have the same pain that I have while reading it in Arabic,
So you're
because this
telling
will
me
help us
the
crack the
Quran is a
code.
so you're telling me the Quran is a horrible read? No way.
Yeah, and it's because when it got Arabized, the grammatical rules are still Syriac. So you have
Yeah.
like the final product is something that's Frankenstein, something that's very bad. That's why my translation, I tell you, it's very bad. It's genius because it is very bad, just like the Arabic. You see?
Mm. Makes you think like when it was like I'm not sure if all of it was originally in Syriac. It could be that some of it was just formulated in Arabic, but let's say certainly some of it was originally in Syriac. And if it's in such a bad state in the Arabic, it might suggest that the people were better originally at the Syriac side than the Arabic side, and did their best in terms of putting it into Arabic. Then then you take that, hand it on to a group of Persians who don't know their Arabic very well, and then they try and interpret it, and now you have like a double layer of confusion. It's like a comedy. It really is.
This is the reality. This is what happened. And of course, Islam, because it conquered a lot of land, um, when the Turks came, they didn't know neither Arabic, nor Persian, nor Syriac. So these people, they added a huge layer of confusion, and this layer kept getting thicker till you got all the way to World War One, actually. They kept
That
printing new books and stuff.
that is incredible. So it's like someone comes along with a spoon into, I don't know, a bowl, and keeps stirring it. It's a bit. I'll give you an analogy. Maybe it's like, if you buy a cappuccino, and there's a lovely design on the top. Every time someone comes along and twists a stick through it, it's ruining it. So if you imagine, it's going from Syriac to Arabic is like a stir, and then it's going to through the Persian stir, and then finally through the Turkish stir again. So you literally, you can't see the original design. It's a mess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic. So Murad, this has been outstanding. Thank you very much. There are a lot of people who have signed up for your translation. So obviously, an email has gone out to them. They may not be aware. They may need to check their emails. They have a golden opportunity to get hands on the translated Quran. So now is a good time to get it while it's there. And for those maybe who haven't signed up originally, is there a way for them to get a copy of the translation.
Yeah, if they just go to my Buy Me a Coffee page, they will find it there. So it is there, and a lot of people got it. They downloaded it, and they are very, very happy with it.
Yeah,
So people listening, they should get their copy now. You see?
excellent. I've actually, as you may have noticed, I've started using your translation now in all new videos, and it's super helpful for me to know that I can rely on the translation, that I'm not two steps removed from actually what the Quran is really saying in Arabic. Because there's nothing worse than if you're being misled and you're making false conclusions based on a bad translation. So I'm super appreciative of the, what is it? Is it 4 or 5 years effort that's gone into this translation? So it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, the total is like 5 years, but 4 years only with the concordance, and the last year it was just translating, just copying
Yeah.
from my own concordance.
Yeah. So thank you, Murad. You're going to come back at some stage in the future.
Yeah, in the next segment we will talk about how I actually created my translation, like the
Oh,
details.
yeah.
The details exactly. This is just showing people the problem. Here I am just showing people that we have a problem is the sin translations. But in the next one, I will show the people exactly how I translated and how my approach was very different from all other approaches.
That's fantastic. I look forward to that. So thank you, Murad, for coming along, and we'll leave a link to your Buy Me a Coffee in the description, so you can go there if you're looking to get a copy of his translation. So thank you very much. Any final words?
No, thank you, Mel. Just I'm telling the people get the translation. If you are kind of skeptic, there is the free sample. Download it, then you will be shocked. Then you will get the whole translation. And I will see you in the next segment. Thank you very much, Mel.
Thank you very much.